I want you to start by just really imagining the smell.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's November 1940, we're in London, and the air isn't just cold, it's incredibly heavy.
Right, it's thick.
Exactly. It smells of wet wool, unwashed bodies, cordite, and just this pulverized brick dust everywhere.
Yeah.
The sun has gone down, and the entire city is essentially holding its breath. Total blackout.
Complete darkness.
You literally cannot see your hand in front of your face, but you can hear.
I can hear the engines.
Yeah, the distant drone of engines. The Luftwaffe is coming again.
It's the Blitz.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a time of just absolute relentless terror
Mm-hmm.
that somehow weirdly became mundane for the people living through it.
Which is so hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. Every single night, death is literally falling from the sky.
Dad.
And then every morning, people are just, sweeping up the shattered glass and going to work.
Right. And I think usually when we tell stories about the Blitz or when you watch movies about it, we tend to focus on that whole keep calm and carry on spirit.
The Blitz spirit, yeah.
Yeah. The community huddled in the underground shelters, singing songs, pulling together. But the source material we are taking a deep dive into today.
Illegal alien.
Yes, illegal alien. It takes a completely different angle. It asks this really dark question. What if you just don't care about the war?
Right.
What if you're not down in the shelter singing songs with your neighbors? What if you're just a guy sitting in a room drinking cheap whiskey in the dark, basically waiting for a bomb with your name on it?
It's such a fascinating subversion of that whole people's war myth right out of the gate. Because what we're looking at here is a narrative that takes the really gritty, cynical atmosphere of American hard-boiled noir.
Like Raymond Chandler.
Exactly. Think Chandler. Think
Yeah.
the Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
It takes that DNA and just smashes it headlong into high-concept sci-fi horror.
Which on paper is a genre mashup that sounds like it totally shouldn't work.
It sounds absurd.
Right. You've got this classic private eye in a trench coat, and then you just drop giant cybernetic monsters into his lap. It feels like it could so easily drift into a spoof or a parody.
It walks a very, very fine line. But the reason it actually works, and I think what we're going to unpack today, is that both of these genres, noir and sci-fi horror, they actually share this core thematic DNA.
Alienation.
Exactly. They're fundamentally about alienation. In noir, you have a protagonist who realizes the system is completely broken and corrupt. In sci-fi horror, the realization is that the universe itself is cold and totally hostile.
So putting those two things together in the middle of 1940s London under siege just amplifies that sense of dread to a crazy degree.
It really does.
So let's meet our guide into all this darkness, the protagonist of the story, Cody McBride.
McBride is just a fantastic character study. I mean, on the surface, he's the absolute archetype. He's this American expat private investigator living in East London.
He wears the fedora.
He wears the fedora, he drinks the cheap whiskey, he's got the snappy, cynical comebacks.
Yeah.
But usually you expect that character to be operating in the urban jungle of Chicago or Los Angeles.
Right. Not dodging Nazi bombs.
Exactly. Placing him right in the middle of the Blitz changes the context of his cynicism completely.
Well, and he's not there on vacation. The text is actually pretty specific about his backstory. He is running from something.
He's in exile.
Yeah.
He definitely didn't leave Chicago to come over and fight the good fight against fascism.
No.
He left because, as he puts it in the text, too many people in Chicago wanted him out of the way permanently.
He burned a lot of bridges.
All of them. He has this massive history of failed relationships and making powerful enemies.
There's that recurring detail that keeps popping up about Dolores, too, the one who got away.
Right, Dolores.
Yeah.
She was a client back in the States. It's that classic setup where he helped clear her father's name in this messy blackmail scandal. And the text really implies she genuinely loved him. Like, she would have married him.
But McBride ran.
He did.
Why? I mean, if he actually had a shot at happiness, why get on a boat to a country that's about to go to war?
Because that is the ultimate fatal flaw of the noir hero. He truly believes he's toxic.
Oh, interesting.
He thinks he ruins absolutely everything he touches. So he runs away to what he thinks is going to be sleepy old England to clean up his act and lay low. And instead, he walks straight into World War II.
It's like a cosmic joke being played on him.
He really is.
And his reaction to the war itself is what I find most compelling about him. He's not patriotic. He's not terrified. He's bored.
He's bored, and honestly, he's highly suicidal. He's playing this twisted game. He sits up in his fourth-floor office, lights totally out, just drinking while the air raid sirens wail outside.
He completely refuses to go down to the shelter.
Yeah, he calls calls it his personal game of Russian roulette with the Luftwaffe.
That is just such a dark, vivid image. A man who is so incredibly done with life that he's basically sitting there daring a high-explosive bomb to hit his building.
It speaks to a really deep fatalism. The text says something like, it seemed fitting that if he was to die, it should be a solitary death.
Wow.
He doesn't want to die in a crowded underground station surrounded by terrified families.
Huh.
He wants to die exactly as he lived, alone. So he's sitting there, nursing this intense fatalism and probably a massive hangover, staring out at St. Paul's Cathedral through the smoke. And then the inciting incident happens. The whole game changes. He sees something fall from the sky.
And importantly, he knows immediately that it is not a bomb.
Right.
He's been sitting there watching this deadly firework display every night for months. He knows exactly what a bomb looks like, how it falls, the sound it makes. This is completely different.
The text describes it as a brilliant ball of light.
Yeah, brilliant ball of light that plummets down and crashes into the rubble near Watling Street.
And because he's a detective, and let's be honest, probably because he's a bit drunk and reckless, he actually runs toward it. He's arguing with an ARP warden on the street. He's dodging the police lines. He just has to know what it is.
He's driven by that classic investigator's curiosity. And when he finally finds it, it's embedded deep in the rubble of what used to be a kitchen. It's this sphere about 8 feet in diameter, perfectly smooth, and it's glowing.
And this is really the moment where the genre completely shifts. Up until this exact second, you are reading a gritty war story.
Yes.
Now, suddenly, you are in a first contact sci-fi story.
And McBride reaches out and touches it. Of course he does.
Naturally.
And the description of this sphere opening is so visceral.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do the typical sci-fi thing where it hums or beeps or opens with a mechanical hiss. The text says it splits open with a sound like the opening of 1,000,000 bottles of Coke.
That is such a weirdly specific and brilliant description. 1,000,000 Coke bottles.
Think about the actual sound of a glass soda bottle opening. That sharp release of pressurized gas.
Yeah, the fizz.
Now multiply that sound by 1,000,000.
Mm-hmm.
It implies this massive, violent release of pressure, of foreign atmosphere. It tells you instantly that whatever is inside that sphere has been under immense containment. It's just brilliant sensory writing.
And then this intense light blinds him. He sees something indistinct moving in the glare, and he just passes out.
He does.
When he wakes up, the sci-fi takes a back seat for a minute, and the noir element comes crashing right back in, because what's the first thing he has to deal with? Bureaucracy.
Enter the obstacles.
King.
You've got Chief Inspector Mullen from Special Branch, who immediately views McBride as this annoying civilian nuisance. And then you have Major Lazenby from Military Intelligence.
I really want to pin Lazenby down for a second, because he is not your standard honorable British Army officer, is he?
Not at all. Lazenby is described as absolutely immaculate. Thin little mustache, perfectly pressed uniform, totally cold eyes. He publicly dismisses the sphere as just some new German secret weapon.
But you get the feeling he doesn't actually believe that.
Exactly. You get the distinct sense he knows much more, or at least he suspects something far worse. Lazenby represents the brutal state machine. He's cold, he's hyper-efficient, and he's incredibly dangerous. He basically kicks McBride off the site and tells him to forget what he saw.
So McBride goes back to his dusty office, presumably to drink more whiskey and brood. But he walks in and finds his inner sanctuary has been invaded. And this is the moment where the narrative really throws the listener a massive curveball.
It's such a great scene.
Sitting right there in his chair is a strange little man wearing a pullover covered in question marks, accompanied by a teenage girl holding a boombox.
The Doctor and Ace. This is the massive collision point of the story. You have the grounded, cynical McBride suddenly confronted in his own office by two characters who are, for all intents and purposes, space-time tourists.
Now, for anyone listening who might not be deep into the Doctor Who lore, we should clarify this is the 7th Doctor. He's known for being a manipulator, right? He's not just a bumbling traveler stumbling into things.
Oh, absolutely not. The 7th Doctor is often referred to by fans as the chess master.
Right.
He actively plays the fool, he plays the spoons, he wears that ridiculous Panama hat, he bumbles around. But underneath all of that, he is always 5 steps ahead of everyone else in the room.
And he totally plays McBride.
He does. He immediately casts himself in the role of Dr. Watson to McBride's Sherlock Holmes. He strokes McBride's massive ego, specifically to get access to his knowledge of the case.
And then there's Ace. She is such a stark contrast to literally everything else in 1940s London. She's wearing this modern bomber jacket and heavy Doc Martens. She's casually using 1980s slang like wicked and calling people a rat bag.
Ace functions as the audience surrogate in a lot of ways, but a very specific type of surrogate. She's from the late 1980s. So to her, the Blitz isn't this terrifying reality. It's a history class she slept through.
That creates a lot of friction, doesn't
A
it?
ton of friction. She's excited to be there. She actively wants to see the explosions. She treats the whole war zone like an immersive theme park ride initially.
There's that wild moment where she pulls out a Walkman, and McBride actually thinks it's some kind of espionage camera. She just puts on her headphones. Or the moment where the doctor pulls out a packet of sweet cigarettes.
That detail is so funny, but also so telling. He pulls out this packet, and it literally has a sell-by date of September 1977 printed on it, and he just pops one in his mouth in 1940.
It's completely absurd.
It highlights how jarringly out of place they are, but it also serves a deeper narrative purpose. It really emphasizes that for the Doctor and Ace, this horror, this war, is temporary. They have a time machine. They can leave whenever they want.
But McBride lives there. This is his life.
Exactly. It creates this underlying tension. McBride is living a daily tragedy. Ace thinks she's living an adventure.
Yeah, and when Ace says she wants to see a bomb go off, the doctor actually has to scold her and remind her that real people are dying under that rubble. It forcefully grounds the fantastical sci-fi elements back in the very grim reality of the war.
It's a necessary reality check for her character.
Speaking of grim reality, the alien sphere isn't the only terrifying thing happening in London. While McBride is getting wrapped up in aliens, the local police are dealing with a serial killer, the Limehouse Lurker.
This is such a crucial subplot that ties everything together. In the very midst of the Blitz, where thousands of people are dying completely anonymously from bombs dropping out of the sky, there is a killer actively stalking the streets in the blackout. And the text notes something really interesting psychologically. The lurker is causing more panic than the Luftwaffe.
Why do you think that is? Rationally, you'd think the thousands of tons of explosives would be the bigger threat to worry about.
It comes down to the nature of fear itself. A bomb is entirely impersonal. It's just gravity and bad luck. If a bomb hits your house, it wasn't aimed at you specifically. But a serial killer, that is deeply personal.
It gives the death a face.
Exactly. It means someone or something is actively choosing to hunt and kill you.
Right.
It brings intentionality back into death, which makes it infinitely more terrifying.
And the method of these killings is just grotesque. The victims aren't just being stabbed or shot in an alley. The reports say they are being torn apart or, to use the text's phrase, squashed like tomatoes.
That phrase, squashed like tomatoes, is incredibly jarring. It implies a level of sheer brute force that simply isn't human.
Right.
A human killer, even a strong one, might stab or strangle someone. But to physically squash a human being? That requires immense hydraulic pressure. It's a massive clue, and it's one that the doctor picks up on almost immediately.
The mystery really deepens when a high-profile victim finally shows up. Dr. Pedler. He's this wealthy industrialist who is secretly working on classified government projects.
And his body is found in what is essentially a classic locked room mystery scenario.
A staple of the detective genre.
Exactly. The door is locked from the inside, the only window is way too high up to reach, and the only other exit is a tiny small drain cover in the floor. But despite the locked room, Pedler's chest has been completely burrowed through.
Which is horrifying. And this leads to the discovery of the business card. The doctor finds this little plastic card at the crime scene, and it's notably not made of paper.
Right, because it's not a business card at all. It's a transmitter. The doctor quietly takes it back to McBride's office and decides to activate it. He knows it's a homing signal. And this is where we really get our first horrific look at the technology of the enemy.
Because the card summons a Cybermat?
Yes.
I really want to pause on the Cybermat for a second, because if you just hear the word Cybermat out of context, it sounds kind of cute, like a little robot pet or a vacuum cleaner. But in the context of this horror story, it is pure nightmare fuel. Can you describe what it actually is?
You have to imagine a silver, segmented worm. It's about the size of a large cat. It's metallic on the outside, but it moves with this terrifyingly fluid biological grace.
It's not rigid.
No, it slithers. Because it's not just a robot, it's a cyborg. It literally has biological organs and components encased inside a metal shell. And the front end of it is just filled with razor-sharp teeth and targeting sensors.
And it literally crashes right through the glass of McBride's window and launches itself straight for the doctor's throat.
It is a dedicated hunter-killer unit. It's incredibly fast, hyper-aggressive, and almost impossible to kill with normal weapons. The Doctor barely manages to dodge it and trap it inside McBride's heavy iron safe.
And then he does something very clever, very Seventh Doctor. He manipulates Chief Inspector Mullen, who has just arrived at the office.
Mullen, the ultimate skeptic.
Right. Mullen doesn't believe in aliens or monsters. He's a pragmatic cop. So the Doctor deliberately tricks him into opening the safe. The second the door cracks open, the Cybermat loops out at them, and Mullen has absolutely no choice but to shoot it.
The way it's described is so chaotic. It says Mullen fired, the Cybermat was thrown back into the safe, Mullen fired again and again and again, just emptying his revolver into the thing in pure panic.
And it forces Mullen to confront the impossible right then and there, because he looks inside the safe and he sees the gears and the wires, but he also sees blood. This horrific mixture of machine parts and organic biology splattered everywhere.
That mixture is the key to why they are so terrifying. If it were just gears and wires, it would just be a broken machine. If it were just blood and tissue, it would be a dead animal. The combination of the two is what makes it an absolute abomination.
The Doctor looks at them and finally explains it. He says, this is alien technology, and worse, it is just the tip of the iceberg.
Because where there are Cybermats, there are inevitably Cybermen.
Which leads us directly to the factory infiltration. McBride, Ace, and the Doctor use the signal to track the monsters back to Peddler's industrial factory.
They sneak in expecting to find human spies, maybe a ring of Nazi saboteurs. But what they actually find standing in the shadows are what look like American gangsters.
Yeah.
These huge, hulking figures wearing classic trench coats and wide-brimmed fedoras.
It's almost like a visual gag at first. The alien monsters are literally dressing up as the noir archetype to blend in, but that illusion breaks down violently and immediately.
McBride, being the tough guy, walks up and punches one of them in the chest. And it's like punching a solid iron mailbox. He nearly shatters every bone in his hand.
And then the hat falls off the figure, the scarf loosens up, and we finally see the face underneath.
The Cybermen. Now, for the listener who might just be picturing a generic shiny robot, we really need to be specific about the design here. These aren't the sleek, cool Iron Man suits of modern blockbuster sci-fi.
No, these are deeply unsettling. The text describes them as having these blank silver faces, but with these dark teardrop shapes cut out under the eyes.
And they have what the book calls clown-like painted mouths.
Which sounds, honestly, kind of ridiculous. A giant robot with a sad clown face.
It sounds ridiculous until you actually imagine being trapped in the dark room with it. This design heavily taps into the psychological concept of the uncanny valley.
Break that down for us because it's so relevant here.
The uncanny valley is a theory in aesthetics and robotics. Basically, if something looks completely human, our brains like it. We accept it. If something looks completely mechanical, like your toaster or a car, we are totally indifferent to it. But there's a dip, a valley, where if something looks almost exactly human but just slightly wrong, like a corpse or a pale silver face with a painted frozen frown, it triggers a really deep primal biological revulsion in our brains.
It sets off alarm bells.
Exactly. It signals to our subconscious that there is a sickness or a wrongness here. It screams, dead thing moving.
So the fact that they have these painted, sad expressions actually makes them infinitely scarier than if they were just featureless, blank metal plates.
Absolutely. It constantly reminds you that there might have actually been a living, breathing person inside that shell once upon a time. Plus, they're toweringly tall, incredibly strong, and they make this awful hydraulic breathing sound when they move. Yes.
It's the exact sound of a mechanical life support machine forcefully keeping a corpse animated. It is pure body horror.
So McBride is standing there, realizing his fists are completely useless against this thing, so he has to improvise fast. He grabs a heavy oxyacetylene cutting torch off a workbench. This is such a great, gritty action beat. He uses the industrial torch basically like a flaming sword. He slashes wildly at the Cyberman, burning right through the trench coat, cutting deep into the silver chest unit.
And that's when we see the true horror of their resilience. Because the text describes these tiny silver mites suddenly swarming out of the wound to physically seal it back up.
Self-repairing armor. That is absolute nightmare fuel.
It emphasizes that they aren't just built, they are grown. They are a hive. Even the metal plating on their bodies is somehow alive. They are a collective organism.
But what's really interesting is that they aren't working completely alone in this factory. They actually have a human collaborator working with them. a man named Mr. Wall.
Mr. Wall is such a creepy, pathetic little figure. The text describes him as very small, with skin like unbaked dough.
Gross.
He wears these thick black glasses and speaks with this very high, almost childlike voice.
Why is he helping them, though? Usually in these stories, the human collaborators want ultimate power or vast amounts of money from the aliens.
Wall seems entirely driven by a mixture of deep fear and this strange sort of religious reverence. He's very much the Renfield to their Dracula.
That's a great comparison.
He controls them, he actually gives them their orders, but you can clearly see in the text that he is absolutely terrified of them. He's riding a tiger. He knows perfectly well that the very second he stops being useful to them, he is dead.
It creates this incredibly weird power dynamic in the room. You have these towering, unstoppable cybernetic killing machines obediently taking orders from a guy who looks like a sweaty, terrified accountant.
It works perfectly because it shows that the Cybermen, at least in this specific situation, are essentially foot soldiers who have lost their general. They are damaged from the crash, they're lost in time, and they desperately need a local guide to function. Wall is that guide.
The fight at the factory quickly devolves into total chaos, though, because Major Lazenby suddenly shows up with a squad of military intelligence troops.
And Lazenby just goes full scorched earth immediately. He doesn't try to arrest anyone. He just orders his men to open fire with heavy machine guns. He clearly doesn't care at all that McBride and Ace are caught right in the crossfire.
We really need to compare Lazenby and the Cybermen in this moment, because they feel like two sides of the exact same coin.
That is a brilliant observation. Unpack that.
Well, think about it. Lazenby is fundamentally obsessed with order. He's a sociopath who wants to ruthlessly tidy up the world, remove the messy elements, maintain control at any human cost.
Right.
The Cybermen are literally the ultimate cosmic expression of that exact same desire for order. They want to forcefully delete all emotion, all individuality, and replace it with pure, cold efficiency. In a very real way, Lazenby is much more like the Cybermen than he is like McBride or the Doctor.
He just wears a crisp British uniform instead of silver armor.
Exactly. The ideology is the same.
The Cybermen realize they are outgunned for the moment, so they retreat. Wall flees the scene in a heavy transport truck. And Ace makes a split-second decision that entirely splits the party.
She jumps onto the back of the fleeing truck. It's incredibly impulsive. It's very brave. And it's just objectively very stupid.
Yeah.
She just leaves the Dr. McBride behind and hitches a ride into the dark with the monsters.
This action takes us into the next major section of the story, which I think is easily the most atmospheric and claustrophobic part of the whole book. The truck drives them to a decommissioned Victorian sewage pumping station.
Talk about a perfect noir horror setting. Massive, decaying Gothic brickwork, huge silent iron machinery everywhere, and just the constant echoing sound of rushing water deep underground.
It's described as being like a cathedral dedicated entirely to waste.
Ace is totally trapped down there.
Yeah.
But she quickly discovers she's not actually the only human hiding up in the dark rafters. She meets a character simply called the Caretaker.
This subplot is honestly heartbreaking. The caretaker is just a normal, broken man. He's starving, he's filthy, he's terrified. He's just been hiding down in the pumping station for weeks to escape the bombs and the police on the surface.
He actually tries to drop a massive, heavy oil drum down onto the Cybermen from the catwalk, but he misses and nearly kills Ace by mistake.
When they finally meet face-to-face up in the dark, there's this really quiet, beautiful moment of human connection amid all the horror. Ace reaches into her pocket and gives him a creme egg.
Which, again, is an item from the 1980s.
Right. But think about the deep symbolism of that action. A creme egg is pure, processed, decadent sugar. It's a total luxury item.
Especially in 1940.
Exactly. It's a tiny piece of the comfortable, safe future that she comes from. And she hands it to a man who is currently living in the starving, heavily rationed, terrifying present. It's a profound act of kindness reaching across time.
They bond over that, and they decide they have to try and escape together through the lower sewer tunnels. And this entire sequence is just incredibly claustrophobic to read. The horrible smell, the thick slime on the walls, the pitch darkness.
And the physical obstacles they face. They are wading through the muck, and they find this one large chamber where the floor looks like it's entirely rusted over.
But when they look closer, and the light hits it, it's not rust at all.
It's Cybermats. Thousands and thousands of them, completely dormant, covering every inch of the floor like a metallic carpet.
They have to move so incredibly quietly so they don't wake the swarm. They find a heavy iron manhole cover that leads out. but it's completely rusted shut from years of disuse. They have to find an old fire axe and use it as a metal lever to pry it open.
But the loud screeching noise of the metal, it wakes the neighbors.
Us Cybermen hear it and arrive. And this is the moment where the story really proves it refuses to pull its punches. As a reader, we really want the caretaker to make it out. We want the tragic little guy to survive and see the sky again.
But he doesn't.
No. He tries to heroically follow Ace down the rusty ladder into the water. A cybergun flashes from the doorway above. He is hit instantly and falls. His dead weight actually knocks Ace off the ladder and down into the rushing water below.
When they hit the bottom, Ace desperately tries to shake him awake, but he's gone.
It's incredibly brutal. He died just trying to help this strange girl escape. And the worst part is, she has absolutely no time to mourn. She has to leave his body floating there in the raw sewage and just keep running for her life.
It drastically raises the emotional stakes, because in Doctor Who, sometimes the main companions can start to feel a bit invincible.
Plot armor.
Exactly. But the normal people around them definitely do not have plot armor. The caretaker is ultimate collateral damage in a bizarre sci-fi war he didn't even begin to understand.
AC eventually gets swept away by the fast-moving water current. She very nearly drowns in the dark. Eventually, she washes up in this massive underground junction, a sort of cathedral of drains. She survives the ordeal, but she is deeply, deeply traumatized by what she's seen.
Meanwhile, back up on the war-torn surface, the Doctor's doing what the Doctor does best. He's ignoring the gunfire and solving the puzzle. He goes to visit a man named George Lim.
Who exactly is George Lim in the context of the London underworld?
He's a professional fixer, a retired civil servant who essentially knows where all the metaphorical and literal bodies are buried in the city. He lives out in this total ghost town area, an entire sector of London that was mandatorily evacuated because of unexploded bomb fears.
The Doctor walks in and finds Lim sitting alone, playing a game of chess against himself.
Which is just dripping with meaning.
No.
Lim looks up and says, "Stalemate, sacrifice of the queen." It feels like a massive metaphor for the entire plot.
Everything is a metaphor with these specific characters. Lim really represents the old guard of intelligence. He reveals to the Doctor that Dr. Pedler, the man found murdered in the locked room earlier, was secretly working on military super soldier enhancements.
Basically trying to build a better soldier to fight the Germans.
Exactly. Chemical steroids, essentially, but mixing them with salvaged cybernetic parts.
And this information is the final key that unlocks the massive mystery of the Limehouse lurker for the Doctor. He finally puts the pieces together. The lurker serial killer isn't a deranged human at all.
No. The Doctor deduces that the lurker is actually a severely damaged Cyberman, one that was perhaps critically injured during the initial crash landing of the sphere.
It's leaking its vital fluid.
Yes. Its internal biological components are rapidly dying off.
So it desperately needs a biological substitute to keep functioning.
Blood. It is hunting humans in the dark alleys, not to cyber-convert them into more soldiers, which is their usual goal, but simply to consume them. It has become a mechanical vampire.
That concept totally turns the classic Cyberman trope completely on its head. Usually, they are the embodiment of cold, calculating logic. But this specific thing is acting like a starving animal. It is driven entirely by base hunger.
It's the ultimate degradation for their species. A creature born of pure, pristine logic reduced to a feral, mindless beast just squashing people in alleys for their juice. The Doctor suddenly realizes that the lurker, driven by this thirst, will inevitably target a place with a very high concentration of blood.
So let's look at the board. We have a vampire robot on the loose. We have a heavily armed squad of healthy Cybermen hunting for it to cover their tracks. And we have a new wild card enter the mix, a character named Sharky.
Sharky is a classic, noir, low-life informant. He was actually hanging around at McBride's office earlier during the safe incident, and he made a truly fatal mistake.
When Mullen shot that Cybermat in the safe, Sharky secretly stole the metallic carcass.
He did.
Why? He thought he could sell it on the black market.
Pure greed. He looked at it and just saw advanced, high-tech scrap metal that he could fence for a fortune. What he didn't realize, because he doesn't understand alien technology, is that a Cybermat is never truly dead.
It's a homing beacon.
Exactly. By shoving it into his coat pocket, he basically lit a massive flare in the dark, saying, "Here I am, come get me."
This fatal error converges all the separate plot threads in the story at a single location. Mama's Bar.
Mama's Bar is such a vividly drawn location. It's an illegal American-style speakeasy hidden deep under the brick railway arches. It's thick with cigarette smoke, A jukebox is blasting loud jazz. There's old baseball memorabilia on the walls.
It's essentially a tiny slice of McBride's old home in Chicago, physically transplanted into the hellscape of the Blitz.
Sharky is sitting there in a booth waiting for a shady buyer to show up. Ace manages to find her way there, looking for McBride to get help. And then the damaged Cybermat in Sharky's pocket finally wakes up.
This is a pure, unadulterated horror movie beat. It activates and it immediately bites him, right deep into his thigh. It physically burrows into his flesh.
And then the floor of the bar just erupts.
The heavy iron drains burst open from the pressure below because it's not just the one Cybermat tracking him, it's the entire swarm from the pumping station. The text describes a literal carpet of silver Cybermats pouring out of the plumbing and flooding into the bar.
Sharky doesn't stand a chance. None at all.
He is devoured right there in the booth.
Yeah.
It's a gruesome, incredibly chaotic death scene. But Mama, the giant American bartender who runs the place, he doesn't panic and freeze like the others. He reaches under the counter and grabs his heavy wooden baseball bat.
Yells, "Home run!"
It's so absurd, right? A giant man violently smashing leaping cybernetic alien worms with a wooden baseball bat, while Glenn Miller Jazz plays loudly on the glowing jukebox in the background. It captures the sheer pulpy madness of the situation perfectly.
But it's clearly a losing battle. Ace is completely trapped behind the wooden bar counter. The silver Cybermats are swarming everywhere, biting people. And worse, the towering Cybermen are closing in on the signal right behind them. The source text actually leaves us hanging right there at the end of the chapter.
It's a wildly precarious cliffhanger. The heroes are totally scattered across London, the alien monsters are swarming in for the kill, and outside, the German bombs are still raining down from the sky.
Before we completely wrap up this deep dive today, I really want to step back and look at the bigger picture of the text. We talked a lot about the surface-level genre mashup. But what about the deeper themes? What is this story actually trying to say about humanity?
I think the core theme, the spine of the whole book, is order versus chaos.
Definitely.
You have Major Lazenby on one side, who perfectly represents a deeply sociopathic form of order. He wants to control everything, and he is perfectly willing to kill everyone in his path to achieve that neatness. Then you have the Cybermen, who are the ultimate, terrifying, cosmic expression of order.
No emotion, no messy individuality, just pure, brutal efficiency.
And opposed to all of them.
You have the Doctor, who operates entirely as an agent of chaos. He uses sleight of hand, trickery, constant improvisation, and total unpredictability to save the day. And surrounding all of them, you have the Blitz itself, which is the physical manifestation of pure chaos and destruction.
It's so interesting that the so-called monsters, the Cybermen, and the supposed protectors, the British military via Lazenby, are actually much closer to each other on the ideological spectrum than the heroes are.
Precisely. The text strongly suggests that too much rigid order is just as terrifying and just as destructive as pure chaos. A world secretly run by Lazenby wouldn't actually look much different from a world conquered by Cybermen.
It would just be a lot quieter.
Exactly.
There's also the heavy theme of the uncanny that we touched on. We talked about it with the clown faces on the Cybermen. But the Lurker itself fits this theme perfectly, too.
The Lurker is definitely the most uncanny element in the entire narrative. It's a highly advanced machine that is acting exactly like a desperate, starving animal. It constantly subverts our natural expectations.
Right, because we expect machines to be cold and calculating.
And we expect animals to be hot-blooded and messy. The Lurker is a freezing cold machine acting in a hot-blooded, feral way. It completely breaks the cognitive categories we use to understand our world.
And finally, we have to talk about the historical context. The story never once lets you forget about the reality of the Blitz happening in the background.
No, it doesn't. And that's a vital choice by the author. It forces a contrast between the fictional, pulpy horror of the alien Cybermen and the very real historical horror of the Nazi bombing campaign.
The Cybermen are scary, sure, but they are ultimately just a handful of rogue monsters hiding in the sewers. The Luftwaffe is an entire industrial killing machine actively destroying whole cities every night.
It raises a deeply provocative question for you, the listener, to ponder. In a world where sudden death rains from the sky every single night, does a single monster hiding in the shadows actually matter?
Does it matter less because it's so small scale compared to the war? Or does it matter more because it has a face?
Exactly. The bombs are completely anonymous. You can't really look at a bomb and hate it in a personal way. But you can look at a Cyberman and hate it. You can actively fear the Lurker hunting you in the alley.
It restores this strange, terrible intimacy to death that the massive scale of the war had completely stripped away.
It brings the terror back down to a human, face-to-face level.
That is a deeply chilling thought to end on. We're going to have to leave McBride, Ace, and the doctor right there in the thick of it at Mama's bar. Next time, we will see if they can actually survive the night.
And if they can somehow save London from being forcibly upgraded.
You have been listening to a deep dive into the world of Illegal Alien. Thank you so much for joining us in the dark.
Goodbye.